Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today is the start of another reading vlog. Hey guys, so it has been a little less than a week since my last check-in. It is Monday the 20th, April 20th, and I have quite a few things to update you on because within the last week I have had like 5 days off, 2 of those days being a weekend. But I took 3 work days off and I did a lot of reading during the last week. I am still playing a lot of Horizon Zero Dawn, but I think I'm starting to get my reading groove back. I was kind of getting slumpy. I don't think I was like really slumpy, but I just wasn't in the mood to read as often as I am other times in my life. I have really been enjoying a lot of what I've been reading, and I think that's been helping me to pick up more books. So when I ended my last vlog, I was about like 30% into The Wicked King, which is the sequel to The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I'm reading this for the BooktubeSFF Awards, and I'm happy to say that I have finished Wicked King. I was doing this one on audiobook. I really like the narrator of this series, and I'm actually really bummed because none of my libraries have the audiobook of the third and final book in the series, Queen of Nothing, and it's not on Scribd. I think the only way I'm going to be able to listen to the audiobook is if I buy the audiobook, and I don't know if I want to do that. Like, I am enjoying the series, but audiobooks are really expensive. Anyways, I'm getting carried away. The Wicked King. I really enjoyed it, and I gave this book 4 stars. It was a really solid sequel. The story did go like in a direction that kind of surprised me towards the end, and it was like an exciting surprise, and now I'm like really excited about reading the 3rd book. I was really nervous going into this book and this series in general about the romance because it's supposed to be like an enemies to lovers romance that a lot of people really like, and I was nervous about it because I just often have a hard time getting on board with an enemies to lovers. I just like don't always find it believable. Either I don't find the enemies part to be believable, or I don't find the transition from enemies to lovers to be believable. So I just like was really hesitant about the romance. But honestly, like, I'm fine with it. I really dig the romance in the series, and I'm very interested after the way things ended in this book to find out what's going to happen next. I can't really put my finger on, like, what's holding me back from a 5-star. I just didn't have that feeling with it, just like for the Cruel Prince. But it's still something that I really enjoyed. Like, I think that I would consider it like a 4.5 that I'm rounding down to 4. The other book that I have finished that I was reading at the end of the last vlog is The Book of Coley by M.R. Carey. I did have an advanced reader copy, an ebook advanced reader copy of this, and I just finished it the other day, and it was really good. I gave it 4 stars. I've just had a string of books that I have like really enjoyed and given 4 stars, but honestly, I'm not complaining. 4 stars means I really enjoyed it, and I am glad that I've had a string of books that I've really enjoyed. Anyways, Book of Coley. This one was definitely different than what I was expecting. It wasn't quite as like action-y as I thought it might be. And I also thought that there would be like more information provided about like the science behind the plants. So this is set in a world where it's like in the future, and trees and plants have evolved sort of to enjoy the taste of flesh and meat. And so people like can't go into the woods because the trees will eat them. And I thought that there would be more of a scientific there is a little bit of a scientific explanation, but he just didn't go into that explanation as much as I thought he might. Maybe it'll still come in the other books in the series. This is going to be a trilogy, I believe. And I will say that by the end of this book, I started to feel like this was a bit of a setup book. The ending of this book definitely sets up the next book with a very like definite direction that I am interested in seeing where that goes. The pacing was a little weird for me. I just think it was slower than what I like really wanted at the time. But the first quarter was super interesting just as we're being introduced to the world and the characters. And then like from the 25 to 50% mark, things kind of got a little bogged down for me, and I got a little bit bored. But then things do pick up again from like the 50% mark until the end. but it's still not like a super action-y kind of book. But I still really enjoyed it. I really like the main character, and I really am just super intrigued by this world. I know that in the next book we're going to learn a lot more about the world just because of where the plot is going, and I'm super excited about that. So while this first installment in the series didn't like blow my socks off, I had a good time reading it, and I am very excited to read the next book, which won't be out for like a year. Okay, so those are the things that I have finished since my last check-in, which is kind of a lot to have finished over the last week for me. But obviously, since I finished those books, I have also started some new ones. And I started this book behind me. So this is my current audiobook, Saving Fish from Drowning. This was a TBR jar pick, but I also, because it was a TBR jar pick, I nominated it for my work book club and it got selected, which kind of surprised me because I didn't think other people would want to read this. I just kind of put it on there. I don't know, I wanted to, kill two birds with one stone if I could. So I'm really glad that it won, but I was just kind of surprised. I'm listening to this on audiobook. The audiobook is on Scribd. It is actually narrated by Amy Tan herself, which I thought was really cool. But I am sad to say that I am not really enjoying this. I'm almost halfway. I've read this much of the book. I think it's like 41, 42%. And this is a weird story. It's probably one of the weirdest books I've read. It's just told from a very strange perspective. So there's an author's note at the beginning of the book that explains that Amy Tan got the idea and the bones of the story from talking to a medium who was told the story through a ghost. And then Amy Tan also did like some of her own research. So there's a lot of like facts, sort of facts like in the story. That's not really the weird part. It's more that the story is told from the perspective of a ghost. You have this omniscient narrator who is a ghost who kind of just like is going from person to person and explaining their backstory and things like that. And there is a bigger plot to this. It's just written in a very rambly way, and it's hard for me to care about the characters. Honestly, I'm tempted to DNF this because I'm just really not enjoying it. All I want to do when I'm listening to this is be listening to Queen of Nothing, even though I can't access that right now. But because it's a book club pick, and even more so because it's a book club pick that I nominated, I feel kind of obligated to finish reading it. And so I think I'm going to see it out to the end, but it's definitely like a 2 or 3 star. I'm hoping it'll pull it up to a 3 by the end of the book, but we'll see. Another one that I'm actually really enjoying is House of Dragons by Jessica Cluess. So this is an advanced reader copy that I got when I went to the North Texas Teen Book Festival in March. I had heard of the author Jessica Cluess and her previous series, A Shadow Bright and Burning, but I hadn't read it and I hadn't heard that much about it. So I really wasn't sure what I was going to think of this going in, and I've read 145 pages. I'm this far in. I've read this much. And I'm honestly surprised with how much I'm enjoying it. There is a cast of characters. There's 5 characters. They're listed on the back along with like a 1-sentence description, which has been really helpful because I'm only a little bit into it and each chapter's from a different point of view. And so when I'm starting a chapter, I keep like checking the back of the book so I can put in my mind which character it is. But I am starting to learn them better now. But this has just been a lot of fun so far. I'm still very early into it, but I want to say that it's kind of giving me Game of Thrones vibes, and I'm sure a lot of people won't agree. But just from the little bit that I've read, it's kind of giving me Game of Thrones vibes, not necessarily the books, maybe more so the show, I don't know. So let me tell you a little bit about what this is about. So there are 5 different like royalty families, 5 houses of Etrusia, and when the emperor of this place, Etrusia, dies, then the children of these 5 families have to compete against each other to become the next emperor. And there's also dragons. They all have dragons, and they're like dragons that are kind of like dogs, sort of. Like they have different personalities and stuff, but they don't like necessarily talk, and I haven't gotten the impression that they're super intelligent, although I do think that intelligence varies, just like you can have a dog that's kind of dumb, I have one of those, and a dog that's kind of smart. I have one of those. So that's really fun, the dragon aspect. And then yeah, like the competition with the kids of the families, that part kind of gives me Hunger Games vibes. So like I would tentatively pitch this. I'm very early in the book and I may regret this later, but I would tentatively pitch this as like Game of Thrones with Hunger Games. I don't know how accurate that is, but doesn't that sound good? And then the last book that I just started like yesterday, the day before, I don't remember, is an ebook. I needed an ebook to read after I finished the Book of Coley. So I was able to get my hands on Starsight. Is that what it's called? Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. It's the second book in the Skyward series, and I'm really excited to be spending more time with Spensa. But I'm literally like 7% in, so I don't really have any thoughts other than it's going good. Alright guys, I've been talking for way too long. I just had read a lot of things since the last time I checked in with you. But that is the update on the things that I have been reading, and I will check in with you again soon-ish. Bye. Hey guys, so it is now Saturday, April 24th, and it's time for me to update you on my reading. I unfortunately haven't finished anything since my last check-in, but I have made quite a bit of progress on the 3 things that I'm reading. Okay, let's start with my physical read, and that is House of Dragons by Jessica Cluess. So I've read quite a bit more in this now. I am now on page 320. I've read this much of it, so I'm more than halfway through. And I'm still like really enjoying this. I still kind of stand by what I said about this kind of being like Game of Thrones and Hunger Games. I just feel like this is kind of cutthroat for YA, and that's what I think of when I think Game of Thrones, but I think people think of different things when they think of Game of Thrones too. Although I will say like the competition part, it reminds me a little bit of Hunger Games, but it also reminds me of like Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I'm very interested in where things are gonna go from here and how things are gonna end. I'm really hoping that I find the ending satisfying and not like a cop-out. My only complaint, and it's a very like light complaint really, is that I don't feel like I know the characters as well as I want to. Like I'm not getting as much inner monologue as I like personally. The level of internal monologue you enjoy is, I think, varies from person to person, and sometimes even if there isn't a lot, like I can still really love the characters. But in this case, while I do find the characters all to be very distinct and have distinct voices, I just wish that I had more of an emotional connection with them instead of just kind of like watching what happens, if that makes sense. I'm really impressed because this is an author I've never read before, and I just never know, obviously, with an author I've never read before, what I'm going to think of their books. So still really enjoying this. Still at like a 4. It hasn't completely made me fall in love with it, so I don't think it's going to be a 5, but it could change depending on how the ending goes. And then my audiobook has been this one, which honestly I've read very little in, or listened to very little in since my last check-in. I'm just not enjoying this book, and so I haven't been motivated to work on my puzzle, which is what I've been mostly doing while listening to audiobooks lately. Like last weekend, or while I had that time off of work, I listened to like The Wicked King in a few days, which was like super fast for me, but it was because I was really enjoying that audiobook and I was really enjoying doing the puzzle. I'm still enjoying doing the puzzle, but because I have to listen to this while I'm doing the puzzle, I haven't like been motivated to do it. I did read a little bit more. I'm now this far into the book, so still not really halfway. I'm intrigued enough to see where it's going to go, but I'm actually really glad that I'm listening to it on an audiobook. If I was physically reading this, I would definitely be DNFing it, even though it's for my workbook club. But because it's on audio and I can do my puzzle while listening to it, it's actually not as bad as if I was physically reading it, I think. But still not really enjoying this. This is definitely a 3-star so far. And then the ebook that I have been reading is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. I'm about 23% of the way through this. It's going okay. I am enjoying learning more about this world. Hold on, I've got a dog at the door. You want in my lap? Hi. Okay. Hi, baby. I am enjoying getting to know more about the world. We're definitely seeing some different things. Like, the book kind of has a different setting. Trying not to be too spoilery. But it has a different setting than the first one. And I'm enjoying that, but obviously I'm still very early into it. I don't have any really solid opinions except that it's going fine, and I anticipate it will continue to go fine. That is my update on what I've been reading. I need to go film another video or two, actually. I'm trying to do them pretty quickly because today is the social distancing book fest that my friend Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany has put together. I'll link the playlist of all the panels down below because by the time you see this it will have obviously passed, but there are some really interesting topics, some really cool authors that are on panels, as well as a bunch of awesome booktubers, some of who are my really good friends. So if you guys are at all interested, definitely go check out that playlist. But I'm trying to film quickly so that I can get back to watching the panels. Alright guys, I will check in with you guys next week. Bye. Hey guys, so it is Saturday and it's time for me to close out this vlog. Once again, I haven't finished anything. I have made some progress, but honestly this week kind of flew by for me and I really haven't been reading as much as I would like to normally. But I still am enjoying what I'm reading and I do feel like I'm getting back into the groove of reading more after going through like a semi-slumpy period. Mika, what are you doing? So let's start with the physical book. I am still reading House of Dragons. I don't think I've made too much. I mean, I've made some progress since I last checked in. I am this far, page 320. I honestly had meant to have this finished by today, but that hasn't happened. Not because I'm not enjoying it, I just haven't been making time for physical reading. I've been reading more from my ebook, which is Starsight, but I'm still really enjoying this and my thoughts on it haven't really changed, so not too much of an update there. And then my ebook is Starsight, like I said, and I have made a lot of progress. I think I was like 20% in the last time I checked in with you. This one has been my main focus over the last week. I did plan to or hope to have it finished in April, and that hasn't panned out because it's May 2nd, and I think I'm going to finish it today. I definitely can finish it today as long as I make the time for it because I'm now 87% of the way through. Obviously, I will be reserving my final judgment on this book until after I finish it because I know that I always love Sanderson's endings, or I usually love Sanderson's endings. But as of right now, right this minute, it's sitting between a 3 and a 4. I think it's likely going to be a 4, but it might be 3.5 rounded up to 4. It just kind of depends on the end. I don't know. I do think the ending is going to make it just a solid 4-star, but basically it's just not quite as enjoyable as the first one. I mentioned that the setting for this one is a little bit different. The world is expanding. We're seeing other places. We're also meeting other characters, and I just don't like them quite as much as I like the original group of characters in the first book. The different kinds of alien species that Sanderson has come up with for this series are really cool. That's one of my favorite parts about this book, is meeting and learning about other alien species and how they are so very different from humans. There were definitely a couple of reveals in the section that I read last night that have got me really excited to see how this is all going to end. And then my audiobook for the last couple of weeks has been Saving Fish from Drowning by Amy Tan, and I honestly have not made hardly any progress. I think I've listened to it once since my last check-in a week ago. I just really haven't been compelled to listen to it because I'm just like not enjoying it that much. And I know that I should probably DNF it, but because it is for my work book club, I'm still kind of fighting against that urge. So we'll see. I haven't quite given up, but I also haven't made very much progress in it. Even though I'm still in the middle of these 3 books, I started a new book yesterday. The book that I started yesterday is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is something that I have been really excited to read, but it actually wasn't on my TBR. I just happened to have it out from the library because I thought there was a good chance, that this would have made it onto the BooktubeSFF shortlist. So I preemptively had checked it out in case it did make it to the shortlist, or the series, the last one in the series. But that didn't pan out, so I wasn't going to read it. But then I saw Angela from the channel Literature Science Alliance. I will link her down below. She was going to read it, and I just got this sudden urge, this mood, to read it with her. So we had decided to start it on the 1st, which we did yesterday. But I also had planned to have finished Starsight and House of Dragons before yesterday, so I wasn't thinking that I'd be reading 4 books at once. Actually, it's about to be 5 because tomorrow I'm starting another buddy read with my friend Rachel from the Shades of Orange. But theoretically, by tomorrow, I will have finished Starsight, so it'll be back down to 4. Anyways, I've just started this. I'm about 10% in, and I am really excited about it. I really like the characters that we've met. I'm so intrigued by this world and the society that has been set up and just like how it works. There's just some things that are like really weird and some things that are really interesting and thought-provoking. If you don't know, this is a YA dystopian that is set in a world where we have cured like all diseases. Basically, nobody dies anymore from anything, and because of that, there needs to be some sort of population control. So there are these people who are called scythes. Being a scythe is like your profession, your job, and they go around doing the killing to keep the population at a certain level or whatever. And the 2 main characters in this book at the beginning get recruited to be apprentices for a scythe. And that's as far as I've gotten. But I just think this society is really interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens. And so many people love this series and have said it's so good. And even though it wasn't really on my TBR, this series was on my list of series I want to start in 2020. So I'm just really excited to be reading this. Alright guys, that is my update on what I have or haven't been reading over the last week. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye.